Okay, looks like we are in. Hi everyone, welcome to UPSC Buffet latest edition and welcome to today's episode. So in the past 2 days we have discussed quite questions and I haven't sorted these questions based on subject wise or PYQ, particular PYQ based. They were based mostly on the logic front, the kind of logic you could use, and I just want to ease you into the preparation level. That's why I've selected the questions that are outliers which cut across the subjects. So that's a point I want to say. In the coming weeks we will be discussing subject wise logic and subject wise questions also, which I will be dealing in a slightly different way. We will be discussing concepts also along with the logic that we need to crack the question, and there will be particular takeaways and materials and a checklist to look for. So that will be about the course in the coming days. There will be a deviation from these outlier topics in the next week onwards. So stay tuned for that, and I hope that will be really helpful for you. First of all, the kind of logic I say here, you need to have an idea on how to think. You can use this in I think in all the subjects, all the questions, but with practice, you know which logic to use where. So I can't say all that in just 2 sessions. Just follow up, keep the pace with me, and eventually you will get to it. And we will have an FAQ session to clear your doubts on when to apply those doubts, and that all will be handled in the coming weeks. So stay tuned and let's begin. Okay, the first question. Recently, consider this question. You might think that, okay, you need to have a current affair knowledge about this, but UPSC has purposefully made it as a statement question, and which has made it cracking it very logical and very easy rather than using any sort of knowledge per se. So first of all, recently Venezuela has achieved a rapid recovery from its economic crisis and succeeded in preventing its people from fleeing and emigrating to other countries. Okay, just have a backdrop, not just about Venezuela, in general, about places like South America and Africa. Except for the affluent West, majority of the places are facing some sort of turmoil, conflict, or economic situations. For example, even in South Asia, even in our just backyard, so the Sri Lanka was going through, and I think it still is going through a major economic crisis. Same with Bangladesh, economic crisis that led to the ouster of the prime minister back then, and then Pakistan due to its structural issues, Myanmar due to military coup. So almost all the nations, all the the developing nations are going through some sort of turmoil which is forcing people out, and there is very less chance of something like this happening, as in a country that has got rapid economic recovery and succeeded in preventing its people, which is a very less likely scenario. Imagine Bangladesh. Even before this student appraisal, it was doing reasonably well in the economic front. But the economic numbers doesn't really mean that people would be stop migrating, because even then we were having like in the 10,000 scale per day, we were having illegal immigration from Bangladesh to India. Even when Bangladesh was doing relatively good in terms of their GDP growth, their economic, their industrial output, etc. So have an idea, just connect it. Okay, even Bangladesh was not able to stop, not just the current Bangladesh, the one that was, in a stable situation a couple of years ago. So even they couldn't do that, then how can any other country do that? Because they were doing economically well also. Even consider the matter for Vietnam. Even then there will be migration. And when there is hyperinflation, people will definitely be migrating because they really don't have anything to have or anything. They will be struggling to meet the ends. So there will be an issue. So something like this happening is very, very low. And have an idea about countries where there is military coups and economic depression happening. Have an idea about which all countries are suffering from economic depression or economic crisis, and countries that are facing military coups. These military coups are mostly in Africa. Of course, we have Myanmar, and mostly in Africa, Myanmar and Venezuela for that matter, they are having autocratic leaders across. With time, there will be autocratic leaders coming up and down, and they will be having some sort of issue with the US. So the issue with the US currently boiled down and came to the forefront. That's why Venezuela is now very common, but back then Venezuela's topic was not very much discussed and not very much in the current affairs, not even in the international relations. So that's there, have an idea. So we can eliminate the first statement, and eliminating the first statement itself will give us the answer. That's the best part of these statement based questions. You just need to have an idea about either of two. If you are able to eliminate one, you will get the answer. Sure, short answer, there is no doubt for that. You don't even have to know whether Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves or anything. This statement is true. Of course, this is true from the question. So, one more tip I'll tell you. Having questions like this will help you get knowledge or get confirmation while answering the question. Imagine you have another question about Venezuela and you are able to understand that Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves. From the question itself, you can use this logic somewhere else. In some other question, some elimination is possible. That is where I tell you, use roundwise approach. Don't go sequentially, that is marking the first question and then second question. Use a roundwise approach where you mark the fully confident one at first, then come back later. Because in the question itself, we might get some sort of information which you can use in other question. Given at least one question, if we are able to do like that, can make a whole lot of difference. So approach roundwise. And about doing roundwise also, I'll be covering in detail in the coming sessions. Right now, just have a cool head, focus on this logic. So the second statement is obviously right, not because we know it, because it is structured like that. So answer will be Venezuela or oil reserve. Okay, statement 1 is incorrect, so it will be D. 97 is D. So takeaway is that note down countries facing economic crisis and military coups. Military coups and civil wars. We have already discussed something similar while discussing the Sudan's case, civil war. This helps. This really helps in having an idea of if some more difficult or factual question is being asked. That's it. Moving on. Second question. According to United Nations World Water Development Report 2022, India extracts more than a quarter of world's groundwater withdrawal each year. Okay. Maybe India needs to extract more than a quarter of world's groundwater each year to satisfy the drinking water and sanitation needs of almost 18% of world population living in its territory. Somebody might know that we are roughly around 18% of world population, so that particular fact is right. Even though you don't, okay, you can, having that knowledge helps, but even without that you can crack this question. Okay, so first one is India extract more than a quarter of world's groundwater withdrawal each year. That particular number seems too high actually. So that's the issue. That particular number seems too high. That is 25% of world's groundwater withdrawal each year is single-handedly done by India. That seems a bit too high. So just be cautious about that statement. But secondly, India needs to extract more than a quarter of world's groundwater each year to satisfy the drinking water and sanitation needs of almost 18% of the population. Here, having a little bit of understanding about Indian agriculture or Indian economy in general will help. The issue with our agriculture or the trait of our agriculture is that it's monsoon dependent, and because of that we are excessively dependent on surface and groundwater extraction for irrigation purposes. That is a baseline issue and a characteristic of Indian economy. The 50% of the country is rain-fed, and so since we are receiving much less rainfall than required, we are forced to use or exploit to a point our surface water and groundwater, and this is mostly done for agricultural purposes. Agriculture is the largest consumer of surface and groundwater in the country, not any other thing. Drinking water or sanitation comes second or third, or it's not even remotely close to the number of extracting water for irrigation. This is where having an idea about green revolution and its effect, things like that will help. We know that we are excessively draining the water. Water table issue is being faced in Punjab, the wheat belt of India. So things like that helps. Having an understanding of like that will really help us think that drinking water or sanitation is not the reason for India's 25% of extraction or the quarter of world's groundwater extraction. It's agriculture and subsequent irrigation. So by that statement, this could be wrong. And here, if somebody knew that 18% is right and they think that okay, 18% is right, so this could be right and this is a factual question. So this is where having a clear head and reading through the question and reading it carefully. Don't forget to underline these statements. Otherwise, you will get confused. For statements like drinking water and sanitation, no mentioning of agriculture is there. Agriculture or irrigation is there. So has there been any mention? The question would have been different. The answer would have been different. So this is wrong. Having this wrong will give us the first statement as right. So that is perfect. We'll go for C. So that's about it, and there is no particular takeaway I would say, but water stressed regions have an idea, and Niti Aayog's composite water management index. Composite index. This report will be published I think every year, and we will have some idea about management of water and how water resources are being managed, and states will be ranked based on high distress, then their their personal, like the regional issues like heavy metal poisoning, things like that. So have an idea about this Niti Aayog composite water management index. Sometimes the question will be directly asked like which agency compiles composite water management index. That's Niti Aayog. So I am not saying that you have to go through the entire thing, but just have an idea, or which all states are severely stressed and which are not that severely stressed. Have an idea about that, and that's all it takes. You don't need to go and study the exact hierarchy, order and everything. No need of that. Just identify the water stressed regions and that's it. So we'll get the answer of this question, and the takeaway is that. Okay, moving on to the next question. Okay, this I would say this question requires, I think, for almost 90% of the aspirants wouldn't have heard about what this is, or UPSC expects them to solve the question using their logic. I think I don't know. I haven't come across anybody who knew what exactly this was and could go to the answer right away. All those who made it right, used elimination and logic to arrive at the answer. So aerial metagenomics, as always in the last two sessions I have said that if you get a word, a statement, deconstruct it. So there is actually three parts to these statements. That is aerial, then meta, then genomics. Aerial means something airborne. Meta means something inside of something. Then genomics. Genomics means study of our genes, or the expression of genes, and all sorts of activities involving genes, DNA, RNA, everything. So genetic expressions, study of genetic expressions. Basically, I'm not saying the verbatim definition of genomics, but genomics mostly revolves around DNA, RNA, genes, etc. Gene mapping and other gene editing tools, etc. So aerial metagenomics. Having that idea itself will help us, eliminate few options. Collecting DNA samples from air in a habitat at one go. Okay. It could be right. Understanding the genetic makeup of avian species of a habitat. Okay. Aerial metagenomics. Okay. Avian species of habitat. So the birds and the bats, or the birds and all the flying species out there, and they're trying to map understanding the genetic makeup. Okay. It makes sense because it has got aerial, then genetic makeup is mentioned. So metagenomic makes sense. Using airborne devices to collect blood samples from moving animals. Okay. Blood samples. See, if we are mapping the genome or anything, if they are moving animals, we will be using the least intrusive or least invasive way to capture or collect the samples. And why would we need blood per se? We need just the hair or a strand or a slice of their skin enough for DNA analysis. So there is no particular need for extracting blood sources. And using airborne devices, this is not a right approach. See, this seems a bit far-fetched. Something like this could be done, but collecting blood samples will be used to study any epidemic outbreak like Nipah or something like that. Not just genomic understanding. For genomic understanding, all we need is just DNA sample, which could be get from slice of skin or just hair or anything. So you don't need blood actually to the genetic makeup of a species. So this could be wrong. Sending drones to inaccessible areas to collect plant and animal samples from land surface and water bodies. This actually makes sense. Okay, sending access areas to collect plant and animal samples from land surface. Yeah, it makes sense. But they are not mentioning samples only. They are not mentioning anything. As in, genomics means there should be some study about some mentioning about DNA. Animal samples could be collected for any purposes, not just genomic studies. It could be collected for any purposes, including genomic studies. So you look for something that specifically or best address the situation. So there is no mentioning of DNA or anything in these two statements. So this could be wrong, and this could also be wrong. And we are left with A and B. Understanding the genetic makeup of avian species of a habitat. Okay, fine. Then collecting DNA samples from air in a habitat at one go. Among these two, which seems more likely or more in line with the statement? Aerial, meta, genomics. Meta means inside something else. Okay, so aerial, meta, genomics. Understanding the genetic makeup of avian species of habitat. So again, okay, so if you are understanding genetic makeup of an avian species, most likely it need not be named as aerial metagenomics. It doesn't really have to do anything with air. We could use avian metagenomics or something like that. So that makes more sense, right? Why would we use aerial? Aerial could be anything that is in the air. It not just avian species. It could be anything. The samples of plants or plants or even microbes. So anything could be there in the air. So spores of plants or the microbes. So anything could be there. So avian species of habitat seems very focused and very niche. It's not very general. And if they are collecting information about avian species, and that particular thing would be named more likely avian metagenomics, not aerial metagenomics. And this is one logic you could use. The specificity, if there is something given very specific and that specificity is not reflected in the keyword, then it wouldn't be the right one. There will be exceptions, but if you don't know anything, this is one approach you could do. So the kind of logic I used was, if this avian species of habitat was mentioned, it would most likely be avian metagenomics, not aerial metagenomics. And aerial means anything that's in the air or airborne, and it's not just avian species, not just birds or mammals like bats. It could be anything. So eliminating this, then we have already eliminated these two, we arrive at the answer. Not because I knew this is the exact thing, but I was able to eliminate B, C, D based on logic and understanding. So that's it. That's how we arrive at the answer, 69A. So the next question. With reference to perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances that are used in making many consumer products, consider the following statements. PFAS are found to be widespread in drinking water, food and food packaging materials. Okay, maybe they're saying it's widespread, which is an extreme statement if you look at it. Okay, PFAS are not easily degraded in environment. Given, okay, perfluoroalkyl, polyfluoroalkyl, fluoroalkyl, they all seem very much like a hardcore chemical substance. So there is a good chance that they could be a persistent organic pollutant or a persistent organic compound. So they are not easily degraded in environment. There is a good chance because fluoroalkyl, yeah, that kind of makes sense. And I don't know anything about this. While I actually answering the exam, I didn't know anything about it. But given the hardcore name like fluoro, perfluoro, polyfluoroalkyl substances, there is a good chance that it's a hardcore chemical and they are not easily degraded in environment. This could be right. Persistent exposure to PFAS can lead to bioaccumulation in animal bodies. Okay, since they are not degraded in the environment and their exposure can cause bioaccumulation. These two are very much in line. Maybe not just animal bodies, plant bodies also there, but we don't need that. It is not given like bioaccumulation only in animal bodies. Nothing of that sort is mentioned. So 3 is a harmless statement. 2 makes sense. So 2 and 3 will be right. So options with 2 and 3, okay. B and C. 1 is gone. 1 is gone and 3 is gone. Like A is gone and C is gone. So we just want to find out whether 1 is right or not. This is where I would say having an idea about UPSC language really helps. Okay. PFAS are found to be widespread in drinking water, food and food packaging materials. Okay. On the first reading, we might think that, okay, PFAS are found to be widespread. Okay. That's an extreme statement. How come a chemical like this is widespread in drinking water, food and food packaging materials? Very natural question and very sensible doubt to have, because how come such a chemical is widespread in drinking water and food packaging materials? How come? But look closely. It is not said that PFAS are used or anything like as in PFAS are used in drinking water, food or food packaging. It is said that PFAS are found to be widespread. The meaning of that sentence, yeah, this has turned quite into a CSAT comprehension kind of question. Look closely. PFAS are found to be widespread. As in, that says that though they are not supposed to be found, they are found. That's the meaning of that particular statement. PFAS are found to be widespread. Meaning, this imagine a body conducting a study and giving its report, and they are giving the report like, okay, these sort of chemicals are found to be widespread in these water bodies. That doesn't mean that water bodies naturally has that, but for some reason, for anomalous reasons, it is being found. So there is a good chance that the reason they ask this question is because PFAS are found to be widespread in drinking water, food and food packaging materials, despite the fact that persistent exposure to PFAS can lead to bioaccumulation in animal bodies. This is where the languaging, understand the language of UPSC really helps. They are not saying PFAS are used in drinking water or food or packaging. It said that they are found. As in, they are not supposed to be found, but they are found. This is a report from some study. It's a direct quotation of a report from study. So there is a good chance because of this question or the subsequent statements are given. So I could say I can confidently go for 17D. So think about it. This is where the classic logic sometimes doesn't work. The extreme statements given only, everywhere, widespread, lethal could be wrong. They could be wrong in the most cases, but pay close attention to the question, how it is framed. So go through the PYQ really helps. Going through the PYQ really helps, and this is exactly what we are planning to do with this program. So look for statements like these, are found to be. That's not really actually an extreme statement. This is not an extreme statement. This might be a fact from a study. So that's it. And there are a few takeaways actually. These PFAS are commonly asked, especially many of the persistent organic pollutants are asked. These PFAS are will be asked, I think, because they are used as fire retardant. They have got really good useful properties like fire retardant, dirt and water resistant, heat resistant, of course fire resistant, and it's heat resistant. So they are used in protective clothing for against water and fire, and used in cookwares like Teflon. Teflon is a subset. Teflon, I think it's polytetrafluoroethylene. It's a subset of PFAS. PFAS is the broad spectrum of chemicals, and Teflon is a subset of that, which is used in cookwares. And question on Teflon will be asked. I think in the past it has been asked, and it could be repeated also. Teflon doesn't degrade at high temperature. Question like that will be asked. Teflon is non-sticky in nature, and instead of Teflon they might give polytetrafluoroethylene, and we might not be able to connect it. So just have an idea about that. Teflon or polytetrafluoroethylene. Forgive me if the spelling is not right, because I don't exactly know the spelling. Just have an idea about that. Okay. Then next question. Recently, the term pumped storage hydropower is actually and appropriately discussed in the context of which of the following? Okay. Again, deconstruction of the words. Let's go with the elimination. Obviously, I don't know the answer. So let's go to elimination. Pumped, storage, hydropower. So there is an element of pumping and then storing and then hydropower. That's it. So it could be used in irrigation of terraced crop field. Okay, terraced crop field, maybe terraced crop field. Yeah, okay. Then lift irrigation of cereal crops. Okay, there is an element of lifting. So it could be right because there is pumping involved. So lift irrigation of cereal crops, maybe. But why cereal crops in specific? I don't know. Maybe. Let's go through the next question. Long duration energy storage. Okay, long duration energy storage. Okay. Rainwater harvesting system. How is rainwater harvesting system connected to pumped storage? Pumped storage, we can say that rainwater harvested is pumped and stored. or maybe something like that. But usually rainwater harvesting is done where we store it underground or something like that. There is no hydropower involved in that. So you have to look for where hydropower and pumped storage and everything is mentioned. Okay, first look for hydropower. Okay, we need to have an idea about hydropower. What is hydropower? Using water to generate electricity. The moving water generates the kinetic energy of the moving water is used to rotate a turbine, and we generate the electricity. And this kinetic energy is acquired by storing the water at a height and then releasing it. The potential energy slowly transferred to kinetic energy. You know the basic of hydropower. So there is no mentioning of hydropower in lift irrigation. These two are irrigation. Okay, how come irrigation of terrace? Like irrigation could be right only when, if this hydropower element is not there, because we need to have some sort of water driven power storage, something of that sort of is needed, because this is simply irrigation. The end goal is irrigation of the crop field. So how come hydropower is connected to these two irrigation factors? This seems very less likely, and given to irrigation, there is less chance of that. So I'll eliminate this. Okay. Then I'm looking forward for this hydropower and then pumped storage. That is how I am looking at it. The rainwater harvesting system, there could be some level of engineering going through and making it a hydropower system. Okay. Long duration energy storage. Okay, there is no mentioning of water or anything here, but energy storage is mentioned, and that storage is mentioned in here also. Pump storage, energy storage, and energy hydropower. Power, energy, then storage, pump storage. This kind of makes sense. And long duration energy storage. Okay, imagine, I'm just trying to picture this thing. Okay, pumped storage, as in we have a lot of water, we just pump it to a greater height and then store it there, and then we use the kinetic energy later on to generate power. This kind of makes sense, and this seems very much in line with this long duration energy storage, as in we don't need batteries or anything to store the energy. We just use the water. We use some energy to pump the water to a greater height, then store it there, then release it and generate hydropower. This kind of makes sense. This is the idea I got after reading this statement. And then I tried to picturize it. Before that also, I just connected the keywords like energy, hydropower, storage. There is no mentioning of storage in these two. Rainwater harvesting system could have some storage, but it lacked hydropower. So that's when I arrived at this option, and this is how I chose it. I think most of the aspirants chose it. The one who has made it right chose this based on that only. There is no you cannot directly come to this. Maybe in some test series you might have solved it, but that's not really a foolproof method. You need to have an idea how to solve the questions, because we cannot grasp anything. There will be at least 2-3 questions like this will be asked, and very less chance that 90% of the aspirants won't be coming across that. So you need to have an idea on cracking it based on logic and elimination, and basing keyword analysis and keyword deconstruction. So that's it. Answer is C. Takeaway, there is no particular takeaway of this, but still have an idea about solar, wind and tidal power status in India, like current installed capacity, then states ranking. This helps, but no need to look at it right now. Just go through these rankings or find details, because these will be short-lived in our memory. Go through these rankings and all closer to the prelims examination, because we'll forget it easily. And even if in test series this kind of question comes and you make it wrong, don't feel bad. You will be able to make it right in the actual examination, because in the last month only go for these kind of rankings and all, and then try to use some mnemonics, some techniques to learn it. Don't invest much time right now, because you will forget it, and there will be a tendency to rely on knowledge more than the available things, because knowledge wouldn't do most of the things. At least in the 50% of the questions, not having the exact knowledge, and we won't be having the exact knowledge. So have an open mind to clear the question, or be confident that okay, whatever question will be asked, I'll use my logic and elimination to arrive at the answer. Initially it will be difficult, but eventually you'll get there. Don't worry. Okay, the next question. India is a member of International Grains Council. Okay, maybe, yeah, India being a very influential nation, there is a good chance that it could be, and a very large exporter of rice. India could be a member of International Grains Council. Okay, a country needs to be a member of International Grains Council for exporting or importing wheat. Okay, International Grains Council member. Okay, but the statement 1 seems right. It's harmless. Statement 1 is right only. So we are left with A and C. So a country needs to be a member of International Grain Council for exporting or importing rice and wheat. That seems a bit far-fetched, because imagine a nation which is poor, and most of the African or South American nations, or the ones that are riddled with war, and what if they are not members of International Grain Council? How will they survive? There is a question, because rice and wheat or grains are like fundamental staple for any civilization or any economy or any country. So needs to be a member for International Grains Council for exporting rice and wheat seems a bit far-fetched, because that's an extreme statement and the practicality of that can be questioned. That's how I eliminated 2 and arrived at 59A. So that's the one thing. One logic you could use. This is an extreme statement, and think about poor nations who are not part of these ground council, like small island nations. They might not be part of all of the agreements out there, and how will they be able to import or export rice and wheat if they are not part of it? That seems like an extreme statement. Then next one, biofilms. I don't know exactly what biofilm means, but going by the word, it means that okay, it's a film, like film as in the algae or some film sort of thing that's very shiny on the surface of on surface, but that has got a biological origin. As in, instead of plastic films, we say that biofilms form from algae or any chemical, any other organism like bacteria or fungi. They're forming a film. Okay, that might be it. I don't know exactly, but biofilms makes sense like that. Okay, biofilms can form a medicinal implant within human tissues. Since it's a biological thing, and within human tissues, medical implants, it's possible. Yes, can be formed on food and food processing surfaces. We are seeing molds on food and food surfaces. Maybe that's one form of biofilm, or biofilms. By imagining biofilms, they could be formed on anything. Any surfaces. If they could be formed on medical implants, they could be formed on food and food processing surfaces. Biofilms can exhibit antibiotic resistance. Yeah, it is also possible. They're all saying that it's can, and biofilms can actually do all of these. This is relatively harmless. If you look at it clearly, there is no need for any doubt for that. This is fairly straightforward if you don't overthink. So that's where the not overthinking part of exam and mindset comes into your advantage. So 37D. No need to study about anything, but just have an idea about biofilms. Just which all organisms or which microbes formed by which all microbes or organisms. Just have an idea about that. What if they give a statement like biofilms are formed by viruses, and you're having a doubt when I don't know viruses form biofilms, but yeah, just have an idea about that. Then, among the following crops, which one of the following is the most anthropogenic source of which is the most important anthropogenic source of both methane and nitrous oxide? Okay, so apparently anthropogenic source methane and nitrous oxide. Okay, methane is a greenhouse gas. So we know few crops and some animal husbandry is very much prone, or better say, they are the culprits of emissions of greenhouse gases. And in that, we know the cattle industry, they accounts for a significant portion of world's greenhouse gas emissions. Because the methane emitted from the digestion and the gut bacteria within the cattle, they emit a lot of methane. Same way, the poultry industry also emits reactive nitrogen compounds. And these two questions are asked in the past also. So, animal husbandry case is there. The same way, there are few crops, and one crop in particular is very prone to that. We know which crop. I think most of you know that. Or if you don't know, just think about it. How cotton is cultivated? On which soil? On which conditions? Cotton is cultivated on the black soil. Okay, black soil can it seems like they can eliminate. Okay, based on pollution, like based on use of fertilizers, they can emit methane and nitrous oxide. Imagine rice. How is rice cultivated? Rice is cultivated on standing water. Okay, when it's a standing water crop. That is, water is logged within a plot, and then it is being cultivated, and the water is being logged in the field for quite a long time. We have seen that in our place also. In the paddy fields, water logging is there, and where water logging is there, there is a good chance that biological activity takes place, and emission of methane and other greenhouse gases like CO2, carbon monoxide can happen. This is very true in most of the cases. So this is in the case of rice, yeah, it's there. Okay, rice is a good contender for this question, this sort of statement. And then sugarcane. Okay, how sugarcane is cultivated? Sugarcane is cultivated not on waterlogged soils. They are just a standing crop on dry land, and that is there. Maybe in the processing of that, they could be emitting methane or nitrous oxide. Okay, wheat also doesn't require waterlogging. So this waterlogging aspect of rice is actually being questioned here. We just have to know that only. Rice is being cultivated on waterlogged fields, and waterlogging can cause emission of methane and other compounds, other greenhouse gases like nitrous oxide. So 21B. That's how we arrive at the answer. Have an idea about crop cultivation practices, major crops. This is one reason why the government is taking active effort to switch to millets, because millets have got very less carbon footprint, and they require very less irrigation, and thereby they are more environmentally sustainable. So that is one more reason, and that's one reason why rice cultivation is being discouraged slowly, because we cannot do it drastically, but slowly it is being discouraged, and millet is considered as a good substitute for rice. Okay, next question regarding peacock tarantula. Okay, by the name of it, peacock tarantula, it's a spider. Everybody will be knowing that tarantula is a spider. Okay, it's an omnivorous crustacean. Its natural habitat in India is only limited to some forest. Okay, in its natural habitat, it's an arboreal species. Arboreal means living in trees. So omnivorous crustacean. Okay, crustacean means having a crust. Does spiders have a crust? And if you have learned something in environment and ecology, you will be knowing that crustaceans are that particular species of animals like shrimps or lobsters, crabs, that has got a reasonably thick calcareous shell. So they belong to the crustacean family. So crustaceans have got a crust, just like crabs and prawns, shrimps, lobsters, etc. So this doesn't belong to, and also they are mostly aquatic. So omnivorous maybe, crustacean no. They belong to arthropoda, altogether different family. So this is wrong. You don't need to know. Actually, having an idea about these arthropods and crustaceans will help, but just knowing that crustaceans are not like crustaceans and spiders, they don't belong to the same category, actually will help you eliminate this option. So this is gone, meaning 1 is gone, A is gone, B is gone, then 2. Okay, so its natural habitat in India is only limited to some forest, so that's anyways true. Look for third statement. In its natural habitat, it is an arboreal species. Okay, given the tarantula is found in natural habitat in some forest areas, so apparently it lives in forest areas, and forest areas means they will be having trees, obviously. And you will know that if you have gone for any trek or have seen forest, you will know that there will be spider webs cutting across, or will be spread across the trees. So good chance that spiders that lay webs, they will be arboreal, because most either they'll be using their webs to catch their prey, or they will be feeding on the tiny insects that are going through, or that kind of reside in the trees. There is a good chance for that, and that makes them arboreal species. Yeah. Also, these spiders, mostly they are found on trees or higher elevations, higher places, because on the ground they are prone to attack from other smaller mammals, and up there they only have to watch out for birds or anything. Down there they are prone to attacks from other bigger species. So this is likely to be right. Like, even I don't know whether this tarantula lays webs or anything, but Given they are an omnivorous, given they are a spider, there is a good chance that they could be arboreal. Anyways, second statement is right, and it says that it lives in forest areas. So it makes sense to go with D. There is a slight risk to it. It could be a non-arboreal species, but spiders, the kind of spiders I have seen in my life, they tend to be living in trees. The ones I see in the wild. Other than that, in our home, they are differently. But even in the home also, they live up. So there is a tendency for them to stay up from the ground. So I just connected that and I just picked 3. So option 37D. Then, which organization has enacted the Nature Restoration Law? Okay, European Union, World Bank, Organization of Economic Cooperation, and Food and Agriculture Organization. Okay, this is fairly simple. If you know the 2 ways you can solve this. One by deconstruction of the sentences, then secondly UPSC language and the trend of UPSC. UPSC has been asking questions about UPSC asks some certain questions like general data protection regulation, then carbon border adjustment mechanism. Things like that are very environment friendly, very forward looking, and very progressive in nature. And these sort of environmental sustainability related laws or conventions or practices, they are mostly driven by either UN agencies or the European Union. This is where having a bigger picture comes to our rescue, that if there are UN agencies mentioned here, then it will be slightly difficult. Food and Agriculture Organization is mentioned, but we'll come to that. But in general, if a very progressive law like General Data Protection Regulation Act, that's a very progressive human right based law, that is by European Union, and then a carbon border adjustment mechanism to neutralize the effect of carbon production in another country and things like that, they are being charging a tariff. So that's another progressive and innovative method. And just like that, this mandatory type C, then right to repair being enforced by European Union, things like that in the electronics front, consumer front. So if progressive measures like these are being mentioned, there is a good chance it will be European Union, because they are the ones taking lead in these matters. So having an idea like that helps. Okay, but the key takeaway from this question is that it mentions Nature Restoration Law. So imagine, among the following organization, which one is capable or is having a jurisdiction to make a law? Will World Bank be able to make a law? They can make some conventions, protocols, etc. Maybe. And UN will be having some protocols, conventions. But law means they need to have some legislative and executive authority to make a law. This is the logic you need to have, that Nature Restoration Law, a body that is having an executive or a legislative functions, will be able to make a law. So Food and Agriculture Organization could only make protocols, standards, norms, codes, etc. Same for OECD. I have never heard of anything like this from OECD. OECD only has this base erosion, profit sharing, profit shifting mechanisms. All those things are achieving the same thing, but they don't have a law, mentioning of law in these protocols or anything. So only agency that is having the rights or having the jurisdiction to do this law will be European Union. And that's how I arrived at the answer. The key takeaway is European Union legislations like GDPR, carbon border adjustment mechanism, and others, and this NRL and others, keep an eye on them. Okay, this will be really helpful in your coming examination. So let's move on to the mains practice question. So question is, discuss the significance of lion and bull figures in Indian mythology, art and architecture. Okay, this is asked in 2022 GS1. Nobody would have prepared anything about this question. I am telling you right away, nobody would have prepared or nobody would be knowing anything about this right away. But those who write a decent answer, and UPSC expect a decent answer only, you cannot just excel this answer per se. But if you could do it, I'm just giving you a practical situation. So we need to have an idea and we need to consolidate the available knowledge. Okay, the question has been asked, lion and bull figures. So I'll show an answer which I wrote. So I think that will give you a better idea. This is the answer I wrote. Okay, the first thing I wrote was lion and bull figures finds multiple references in Indian mythology, thereby even in our national symbol of Ashoka's lion capital. The only thing I knew was Ashoka's lion capital because a couple of days ago, before writing this answer, back 2-3 months ago, I read about the Ashoka's lion capital and the adjustments going on there, the mention of the motifs in there, and in there we obviously know there is lion and there is bull. So because of that, I knew that, and instantly I tried to connect it with Ashoka's lion capital. So Indian mythology, art and architecture. So I connected it with Ashoka's lion capital. Then lion figures. The significance of it is being asked like significance of lion figures. So I have split into lion figures and bull figures and tried to mention it's on the headers of mythology, art and architecture. So it's like in mythology, they symbolizes aggression, leadership, found in Mauryan Gupta architectures like stupas and monastery. There will be, of course, they are powerful kingdoms and they all use, of course, their sigils will be different, but they will be using some form of lion references to express their aggression and power. Then rich heritage of royal dynasties symbolizing royalties, Vijayanagara seals. Then avatar of Vishnu. That's where this mythology part comes in. We know that Narasimha is an avatar of Vishnu and Narasimha is half man, half lion. So we just connected it. You don't need to know anything about it. I just that just hit me while I was writing this answer. So this is where having an understanding about everything and using it in the question really helps. Don't look at its question and study for the lion and bull figures, mythology, everything. This thing came to me while I was writing the answer. This is not just for me. Anybody who is having a general understanding about things and eventual answer writing, you will get to these points and you will be able to write decent answers. So that's why I'm saying that focusing on answer writing doesn't really mean that getting more knowledge. It's about writing again, correcting, then writing again, and streamlining your thought process. Then conveys unrelenting honor, especially Chauhans, Rajput. Yeah, that's one mentioning. Then bull figures. They symbolizes strength, resilience, wealth. In Mauryan Mahajanapad, I just sprinkled some major ancient and medieval dynasties. So Buddha's mother had a dream of bull while being pregnant with Buddha. This is something I read about while reading about Ashoka's lion capital. And then to exhibit war might used by Hoysalas, Chandelas in their letter pads. Then a symbol of wealth in Aryan culture, Vedic society due to their nomadic lifestyle. Yes, bull figures are symbol of wealth. Aryans used cows for worship and bulls as symbol of wealth because they were constantly moving. That's the only possession of wealth they had. Then warrior might in Sangam, exemplified through Jellicut celebrations. We know Jellicut and we can easily connect it with bull because one who is able to tame the bull is regarded as a warrior and he's been bestowed with valor. So that's there. All 4 points is needed. Just 4 general points. I just sprinkled the available knowledge and then brought in some the reference of Vishnu and Narasimha, then Jellicut celebration and symbol of wealth, symbol of strength. And then we could say as a conclusion, I don't say this conclusion is particularly good, but you will get an idea. As in being rooted in Indus and Vedic society, the ancient to present day Indian society attribute symbolic value to bulls and lions, hence are often raised as trophies. Yes, particularly bulls. Bulls are raised as trophies. In Tamil Nadu, in Kerala also the bulls are raised as trophies and showing the family might. Things like that are still practiced today. So bulls form a core component. Other than that, bulls being a draught animal, it forms a core component of India's agrarian system. So that's all. Go through this answer and you will get an idea that there is nothing exceptional wrote about it. But this answer actually fetched me decent mark in the test series. So I think this is okay. You can improve upon it. Obviously, there is always room for improvement, but don't be afraid while writing the answers when you come across questions like this in art and culture and thinking that I need to go through everything in art and culture. You don't need to. Just have an idea, just frame it like this and you're